Welcome to Lurking for Legends. We're a live videocast that speaks to people from all walks of the publishing world. My hosts, Christy Stratos, David M. Kelly, and myself encourage viewers to chime in with questions for our guests or simply comment on what you hear. And tonight on Lurking for Legends, we're excited to feature Anna Applegate. Welcome to our show, Anna.
Thank you so much.
Hi.
Before we get started, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Anna Applegate, as you already kindly introduced. I am a paranormal and fantasy romance writer. I wish that was my full-time gig. That's the dream, but I work full-time in marketing and meeting planning as well. But writing, I've been writing since about 2013 and mostly just the paranormal world. And I've got a couple different types of series out. I'm a sucker for vampire romance, so there's a lot of that in my work. But those are my favorite things, and yeah, that's me.
So, no, go ahead, Dave.
Excuse me. I was just going to say, I looked on your website, and you have some like really amazing covers. And the interesting thing about them is although they're all very different, they all kind of look as though they belong in a family, and as though that's kind of your theme, I guess. And I was just wondering, I mean, how have you managed to do that? Is it all the same artist, or do you specify it?
It's not the same artist. It's definitely not me. I'm not talented in any way like that. My two, I've used three different cover designers. One is Kristen Batuland. He is Covers by Christian on Facebook. He's fantastic with the research that he puts into the genres that he's doing, which really helps. And I think they look unified because they are pretty to market, I would say. And I write mostly new adult paranormal romance. So he's all the artists I've worked with are very good at just making sure that they're sort of to brand and to market. And I also worked with Paul over at Triff Designs, and he's another incredible author. I don't know anything about book covers or graphics, so I feel like sometimes the requests that I make are crazy and they just make it happen. I was on one of my latest books, my series, the Curse of the Fae series. I was working with Paul at Triff Designs, and I had asked about changing the face just a little bit. And I said, do you want me to look at the stock photo and find a different face that she's making? And he was like, well, I actually drew her face, so I'll just draw it differently. So they'll go in and touch up these faces or create their own faces. And it's just, I'm always so impressed with the abilities that they have, because I've always been very lucky with incredible covers.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard of Kristen Batuland. He's I've got him. I think I actually have him on my Facebook page, so I follow him as well. He's got amazing covers for sure. I was just when I was on your website too. You have a big announcement coming up in 2 days, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I like how your website, you have 8 books listed in the Curse of the Fae series, and 6 that are still being released. You just show a fraction of the cover. So I'm assuming you already have those covers?
Yes. So I did. The Curse of the Fae series it'll be the longest series I've ever done. It's only been 4 up until then. So what I like to do, and I think one of the ways that the covers kind of all mesh together really well in the series, is I try to do them all at once, like book, Paul at Triff, and say I have 8 covers I want to do, as close together as possible. And I'll work on those sometimes before I even start writing, just to make sure that they're, in line with each other and mesh well together when they're shown together. But I think that's one of the things that helps, is just doing them very close back to back. And it helps keep me on track and not go too far off my plots when I know I can only have 8 books. So yeah, there's 6 more to come, and all the covers are done. So it's hard to hold on to those because they're good.
So that's neat. That'd be one heck of an expense right off the hop. because these
Yeah.
guys do good work and they deserve to get paid what they get paid. So I don't never begrudge them for paying what you pay for a good cover, because a good cover will get someone who doesn't know you to actually look at your book. So
Yeah.
they're worth their weight in gold. But so with the 6 books that you haven't written yet, do you simply write the stories to match the covers in a certain way, or the covers generic enough that that just fit in with the theme of your story? How does that work?
So this particular series, I actually worked with one of my mentors, Rebecca Hamilton, had worked with me on kind of this idea and concept, and she had the basic series arc done for me. And we would talk about kind of the key things we wanted to happen in each book. So before I even looked at a cover designer or wrote the first words of the book, I knew what each of the 8 books was going to sort of be about at what point in the story. So when I went to Paul, I would tell him, here's the synopsis of this book. Here's like one of them, I won't tell you which one of them has like a stone that's important. So there's a stone involved in the cover and things like that. So I knew the major things of each story, the major theme that would be in each story. And that kind of helped do the covers. So basically it went do the series arc, get the covers done, and then start with the books. So
I think it's quite interesting you say that. So you actually kind of know what each book is going to be long before you actually write it. I find that really strange because of the way I write.
I do too. I'm not worthy.
I write sort of one book, and as I'm writing it, I sort of think, oh, actually, I could take this somewhere else, and then I end up with another book, and then maybe I'm going to end up with something else. And like for instance, my first series ended up being 4 books, but it's like I had no idea that it was going to end up being 4 books at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And it was halfway through the series, it was only going to be 3 books, and then I changed the second book and then had to put a 3rd book in place of what was going to be the 3rd book, and then a 4th one to tie everything up. And similarly, I've just done another one which is a spin-off, and that was only going to be 1 book, but now that's turning into 2 and possibly 3. So I mean, how do you kind of go about sort of just knowing what you're going to write for so many books?
I think that's incredible too, because I have a hard time planning what I'm going to have for lunch.
Right.
I mean, I do too. I used to be the very first series I ever wrote. I wrote pantser versus plotter, if you heard that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was very much a pantser, and I didn't know what was going to happen in the book at all, kind of like you just described. And I was fine in the first book. I released that in 2013. The second book was like 2014. So it was, for my first series, going along pretty well. And then I just hit a wall, and I for 5 years took a break because I just couldn't get this story to finish up, and I didn't know where it should go or what to do. And eventually it kind of, you just get in your head and you're like, well, I can't finish it now. But after that, I made a promise to myself that if I was going to start a series, I at least wanted to know how it was going to end. So the arc that I'll do for the series is usually very, very loose. So there's a lot of room for developing other plot lines or minor plot lines, but I at least want to get the major plot line down, the major, whether it's a major, reveal, if there's a few of those that I want to make sure I have in there, or just at least like the beginning, middle, and end in general to know where I'm going, because it makes it a lot easier to, 3 books in, look at your paragraph or your arc and know, okay, overall I need these few things to happen in these 25, 30 chapters. And then it makes, plotting from there a little bit easier than it normally would be. So I feel like I learned the hard way that I am not good as a pantser. So
yeah, I think as you write series, it becomes more and more important to have things written down. Maybe not like Dave and I, we kind of fly by the seat of our pants, not quite sure how the next book's going to go, but it's nice to write these things down as you get into books 6 and 7. There's things that happen in books 1 and 2 that, because you're the author, it's taking you a long time to get to where you are at. Yeah. And you forget all these the minutia of your story, but your reader, who is, an avid reader, will read your books within a month. and they don't forget a thing. So
yes, which is good. I've when I have, readers read the books in advance, earlier, especially, I'd have them saying, this was sort of unanswered in book 1 and you still haven't gotten back to it. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I gotta work that in. But I almost have like, each series, I feel like I have to write more and more down to remember, because now there's a whole bunch of characters in my head. And I feel like I know them so well that some things like I forget I haven't revealed to the reader. So what I do is I keep it's like my book, my series Bible, and it'll have, the history of that world, or, in this world, vampires have these abilities. And this Curse of the Fae series, there's Seelie and Unseelie are the two main factions in this world of fairy. And so they each have different abilities and different magical powers. So I had to document that just to be able to reference back to it, which has been really helpful, because there's been other times where I've had to go back and flip through and take notes through my book 1 again when I'm on book 4. So now I just kind of try and jot down little notes. I'll write, there's a tab I have that'll be characters, even like minor character names in case I need to reference something. So it's become much more involved than Fly by the Seat of My Pants first series to where I am now. It just learning little things here and there has definitely helped.
So we have a question for somebody on the chat. It says, how did you end up choosing to write paranormal romance? Were you a fan of the genre or as a reader first?
Yes, I was very much a fan. I feel like I had my paranormal awakening with Twilight back in college when that came out. So I've always been a reader, and it was more fantasy, like Tolkien I read as a kid. My parents read that to me. The Narnia series. Those were the kind of books I had read mostly growing up. And then I discovered Twilight, and that sort of led into all the paranormal romance. And I really was a big fan of Amy Bartle. She is a smaller, she's not an indie author, she's an Amazon publisher, but she wrote this incredible series that I just read over and over, Vampire Academy by Rochelle Mead. I was reading over and over for about 2 years, just close one book and start the next one. So I was a big fan of the genre, and because I loved it so much, I feel like it makes writing in it much easier when that's what I'm constantly in my spare time, like I'm reading in that same kind of world and the same kind of genre. So I feel like that really helps stay in that mindset.
Mm-hmm. So, and this is a question I wanted to ask before we come on. And, I'm an epic fantasy author. So, I write dwarfs, dragons, fight scenes, elves, that stuff. So other than the obvious, I know yours fantasy romance has romance in it. How does fantasy romance differ from like regular fantasy like I write? Are there still quests and magic involved, or is it all about castle life or in a medieval setting or like another worldly setting? Where's the difference there other than the romance part? Or is there?
I feel like, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, because this is how I view epic fantasy as much more detailed and more of just the world building is very extensive, and the quests are much more detailed, I think. Whereas in mine, I'll have, in this series, for example, I have a map that I had done up of the, land that they're in. It's a human girl that falls into the Fae world. And so there's a little bit of world building involved there. But when I read epic fantasy or high fantasy, I just am always so blown away by how much more extensive the details are to that world. Whereas I can focus more on feelings and romance and emotions of the characters. Not that epic fantasy doesn't cover that, but
no, for sure.
I feel like that, I think that's where the big difference is it's a little bit lighter on the, to me, the hard stuff, the details of this.
Oh, definitely. That makes sense. So you concentrate more on the relationship part of it, whereas I concentrate more on the quest part of it. And, obviously there's always going to be relationships when you bring people together, but I don't delve into them going behind the closed doors and stuff like that. So that being said, I haven't read Sarah Maas, and, that's not my genre, but, Are yours similar to Sarah Ma's? Do they go graphic per se, or is most things left unsaid? You just concentrate on the actual relationship?
They get a little bit graphic, not as graphic as hers, and I feel like she's the perfect mix. I love her, so I feel like
Yes,
she's the perfect mix of that. More of an epic fantasy, because the world she created in Akatar, for example, is incredible. Just the details of the different fae and the different realms that they're in, and but then it's heavy romance as well. So I feel like is kind of this in between mix that's just fantastic. But mine do get a little bit more graphic, but I don't think as much as her books do. I was thinking when you were talking about the quest in this release I have coming out in 2 days, for example, the human who came into Fairy, she is saddled up with the prince as his servant. And they have to go to an outbound city that is near the border with the enemy. And that, I feel like if it was fantasy, I could make that whole quest like about the different creatures they meet along the way or different people. And instead it was a chapter where I'm talking about what she's feeling about a fight they just had. And when they set up camp for the night, they're arguing, and it's a detailed argument, and more of that kind of thing is my quest to this outside land versus the more fantasy style.
I write science fiction, so of course none of my characters have any romantic lives at all.
Is there no romance? Is there no romance in science fiction?
Well, there is in mine a little bit. It tends to be fairly minor in science fiction, though, it has to be said.
Lately, I feel like paranormal romance has started to creep into the sci-fi, though. There's a lot of like alien romances coming out, and it's been interesting.
It could well be. It's
been interesting.
I have no idea of, really, quite honestly.
I think Joe Ballin and Dolly could have one heck of a sci-fi romance storyline if you want to branch off that way, Dave.
Well, they have their own kind of romance line. It's kind of
they certainly do. Yes.
It's rocky, and
you're right on the edge there. You could just tip the other way. Yeah.
There you go.
Twists in certain areas, but that's a different conversation.
It could be a twist your readers don't see coming.
So we touched on this earlier, and you just mentioned it recently. Tomorrow, April 28th is a big day for you. And as an author, these days never get old. And it's almost as exciting as getting that print book in your hand. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on April 28th?
Yes. So the second book in the Curse of the Fae series is coming out, Fairy Stolen. I'm really excited about this one. It took a while, I feel like, to get out the end how I wanted it to get in this book, which it's hard because it's an 8-book series. So I am a big fan of cliffhangers at the end of my chapters, at the end of my books. For me as a reader, I enjoy those because I love that feeling of I have to see what happens. So I write in that way as well. And so I was trying, because it's 8 books, like, how do I leave it on a kind of cliffhanger, but don't make everyone mad with like something that's crazy. But I'm really excited. It's basically everyone gets to travel back to this world that they fell into in the first book. Fairy Magic is the first book that came out in January. And it's Coraline Frey is the main character. She's a human. She's been in foster care her whole life, and she fell into a well in the park in the city she lived in and popped up in Fairy, this magical land of Fae. And the premise is that the Fae have been losing their magic, and so they use humans as feeders for energy. And so when she's discovered in Fairy, she's taken immediately away. She's taken to the castle, and she's assigned the Prince of the Unseelie as his feeder. The twist in the first one is that he actually doesn't feed from humans. He tries to feed on the energy around him. So he's a little bit different in his mindset of how to get the magic back in Fairy. But It's definitely a slow burn romance for a paranormal romance series. It's not, like a instant love kind of thing. And in this book, we have the prince actually is engaged to another fae. So it was kind of writing. I didn't like that. So I was trying to write through it. But it was good for some of the character development in there. So I'm excited. I've only gotten a few reviews back so far from some of my advanced readers, and so far they're loving it, which makes me excited. That's always nervous. I feel like release day when you start seeing the reviews coming in. And I know I probably shouldn't read all of them, but I get excited just to see if it's, especially second and third books in the series, like if people are still enjoying it as much as they enjoyed the first. So
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's exciting, and it's Thursday. So
Well, congratulations.
thank you. And if Christy were here, she might give you inside information because she's my editor.
Oh, that's right. Christy's your editor. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got the
So
inside.
if there's any mistakes in there, we can blame her.
or me for not accepting it. Right?
No. We're going to blame Christy.
So you obviously you do the paranormal and you do the fantasy romance. Have you got any plans to kind of branch out and write any other kind of genres or any other styles? Anything that you can talk about on that side of things?
Yes. Well, technically, you're getting the exclusive because I haven't talked about it to anyone yet. So you heard it here first. I actually have recently decided to try my hand at contemporary sports romance in an effort to kind of keep the paranormal and the contemporary separate. With my name, I'll be writing under a pen name, Ava Woods. It'll be known that it's me. I'm not keeping it a secret, but it'll just kind of help classify the contemporary stories versus my paranormal and fantasy. But that I'm really excited about just because it's new. And like I said, I started writing paranormal and fantasy in 2013, and I love it. That's what I read mostly. But it was sort of invigorating to sit down and do a plot and do a storyline for a new genre. It's just different. And it almost kind of, not that I've lost the excitement for writing. Obviously, it's always exciting when you can create something like a book, but it sort of recharged my batteries a little bit in a way, because it's just so different than what I'm used to doing. And it's really hitting a different creative side and trying to bring the romance out more, which I feel like is only going to help me in my paranormal work, just in terms of pulling out the romantic kind of emotions a little bit more in my paranormal and fantasy series by doing that. So that pen name is probably going to launch end of July, early August. So that's coming up pretty soon here.
Sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun for you.
Yeah.
So that I want to ask you. So book one you released in your Curse of the Fae series in January, and book two is releasing in 2 days. So do you purposely withhold the release of your books to kind of take advantage of the Amazon algorithms, or do you actually write that fast that you can actually put them out that quickly? And that being said, you also, sorry, I'm going to give you
go ahead.
Answer but once, so otherwise I'll lose my train of thought. You mentioned you're going to do your pen name this summer and release one this summer. So that means that, in my mind, that would already be in the works already. So do you write more than one book at a time and flop back and forth as the mood hits you?
Yes, I do. It's more of a recent thing. I feel like when I started writing, it was very easy to take your time in between books and still kind of maintain the fan base that you were developing. I've realized as a reader and as a writer, the pace, I feel like, of releases, more so in the indie author world, has increased a lot. And so I have a weekly writing schedule that I make, and I'll just sort of time out. I know how many hours it takes me to write one chapter. And so I'll see how many hours I'm expecting to have of writing time that week and just plan which chapters and which books I write. So I'm writing a whole separate paranormal series that I've been working on. I write maybe one chapter a week on that because it's sort of a back burner series I'm doing. I'll write like 3 chapters on my sports romance, and then I'll write 3 to 4 chapters on my now book 3 of the Curse of the Fae series. So that's coming out in August. So yeah, I work full time, so this is a fun, loving hobby. And then I'm a full time.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm just in awe that you can do this and work full time. Like,
yeah,
I write full time and I can't do what you're doing.
Yeah, and I'm a single mom full time, so it's a lot.
Wow. So you don't sleep then?
I don't sleep now.
No.
Who needs sleep though? Coffee is what you use for no sleep. But it turned into very much needing a very strict schedule. And so that's been my secret sauce to releasing faster, is just having that schedule timed out to how long it takes me to write a chapter. So.
Wow.
I'm just tired listening to that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to take a nap. So seriously though, I commend you for. So you must maintain a rigid schedule and then stick to it. And I applaud you for being able to do that, because I know myself. I'm older than you, obviously, and I still can't do that. So congratulations on your discipline. There's something to be said for that, for sure.
Well, I slip up a little bit. Don't ask Christy how many times I pushed back the edits for this most recent release.
But she might have been thankful, because I know she keeps a busy schedule. So
she does.
Yeah. So go ahead, Dave. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you mentioned that you work in marketing on the side, or as your main job, and your marketing and your branding looks fantastic. It looks really professional. So I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about your approach to marketing, and maybe tell us kind of some of the things that you found to be kind of like the most or least effective.
Yeah, I feel like it varies from person to person, which is like I would get that answer every time I asked it, and it's frustrating, because I want there to be a formula to follow for marketing, and in a way there is. It's almost like marketing is its own part, like own half of the job, as much as writing is. And there are times when most of the time I feel like I'm not utilizing social media like I should be. And, running this podcast, I'm sure you guys know, when you're talking about the guests you're having coming on, you're posting to all the different platforms. That's another thing that I would like to do, is get a little bit of better handle of scheduling social media, because is in this day and age, if you're not consistently posting, you're not getting the algorithm right to show up on people's news feeds and show up where you need to be showing up. But then it's also, before you know what to post, you have to go kind of do some research as to what are other authors posting, like what content are they putting out, what are readers reacting to. So it's almost like a whole separate job to this, is the research and marketing side of it. And it's definitely a lot. I find between the newsletter swaps and like scheduling book bub swaps to recommend other people's books and have them recommend yours, it's so much. So in that little schedule I usually 1 to 2 days of the week I have for scheduling social media posts, or scheduling those newsletter swaps, or focusing more so on the marketing part than the writing part, because it's just as important and easier to push aside, because I'd rather be writing, but it's challenging. And then I have tried my hand at Facebook ads, and sometimes I've found that those are really great, and other times I've struggled a little bit there. But I do a lot of, like, for releases, for book 1 releases, I'll do a lot of ads, and some of the book services. Book Rebel is a big one I use. Bargain Booksy, Genre Reads. There's a pretty extensive list, but I find that usually on launches, using those book services are pretty helpful. And then anytime there's a sale, if I'll put a sale up on a book, I'll usually book those services again. So I rely on them a little bit since my social media is not up there all the way. But there's some fantastic ones that I've really found have been very affordable, which is nice because there's a lot of things that aren't affordable in the author world. But yeah, that's one of the services I feel like I recommend finding those book blasts or those, companies that promote the books, finding the ones that are good for your genre. So,
Right.
And it that takes time too, because I'll find one series does really well with, say like Book Rebel, and then I'll post another series up there and it doesn't do nearly as well. So it's a lot of hit and miss and analyze and start over.
So do you find that your job, like your real job, I always say that, and I know writing's a real job, but do you find that your job in marketing out in the real world, maybe is a better way to say it, not our fantasy world as authors, helps you market in the book world, or is marketing in the book world a totally different type of creature?
I think it's totally different. My marketing is mostly herding cats. I feel like meetings and planning events and things like that are much stricter. The creative side isn't there as much in the real job. So I feel like the book world's just a different animal with marketing in general, and what's trending at what time, and trying to do that research to find out what's really hot. It's a different beast. I think I wish it carried over and would help me out there.
Oh, sorry, Dave. So yeah, well, this is exactly what I wrote down while you were talking. I wrote this down as something to ask you after, and Wanda just nailed it. You have 15 books out. It started in 2013. It took 5 years off. Like, did you take 5 years off that one series, or did you take 5 years off writing, period?
Writing period. So
Wow.
it was, and it might have been like 4.5 years, not really 5 years, but
that makes the difference.
I when I put my first series out, I kind of thought that was all I was going to do. I didn't think I had, the ability to keep going with it. I just wanted to try it and see if I could do it, just because I liked reading that genre so much. And then I ended up, loving it, not loving it because it wasn't coming to me. And then when I finally sort of got my head back in it, and started taking it a little more, I don't want to say a little more seriously, but in a way a little more seriously for me, by having a better plan and a better approach to how I was writing, it was much easier to do and to stick with. So that was a very sweet comment. Thank you.
So you mentioned vampire books a few times. So could you tell us maybe, which are your favorites? Do you like kind of the old style kind of, gothic kind of vampires, or is it more of a kind of new sort of sparkly vampires? Which vampires can like Anna's sort of favorite that you love the most?
And I don't discriminate against my vampires. I like the broody ones, maybe the more gothic ones, Victorian kind of style ones. I like I was a big Buffy fan, like when that show was on, and I loved the flashbacks with them when they were in like the Victorian era or other things. I like that idea of living through these different eras in time with the vampires and how that shapes them. So maybe a little bit more on the gothic-y, broody side than the sparkly side, but but it is fun to.
Christy, I love to hear that. Christy must. So has Christy edited all your books, or?
She this series that I'm working on now, she's did, and one other series that I haven't released yet either, but she's done those. So she's also going to do my sports romance one. So we'll see how that works. But it's just been recently I've been able to work with her more, which has been wonderful because she's just amazing. And her comments are always perfect. I feel like one of the things I had a hardest time with was finding the the people I need to help me write. So my grammar's atrocious. I know I need an editor, like a good editor. And I feel like sometimes it's very hard to find that and know if they're going to work and have, give the feedback you need. Same thing with cover designers. It's hard to know what you're going to get sometimes. And I feel like there's a lot of parts to publishing a book, and sometimes it can be really hard to find the right people to help you with that. And I feel like I've been very lucky especially recently, with falling into everyone being so wonderful to work with. So
and I think that just ties into what we were talking before and what Wanda touched on, that as an independent author, it's not like you just write a book and send it off to the publisher and they look after the cover and everything else and editing. You have to do everything. You have to edit. You have to, you do some editing too as well. You do your marketing, and you have to. You don't actually design your cover. Dave does, but you don't design your cover, but you still have input in it, and you have to get that all set up. So you have the final say in that. And there's just so many different hats that you have to wear. Plus, you work full time. Plus, you have a child, and you're a single mother, so you're not getting. Well, I don't know, but you know what I'm saying. You're just so busy that that's just blows my mind that you get so much done.
Thank you.
In such a short amount of time. So your books are what, about 20 pages long?
Yeah, it's about 20 pages. Sometimes I'll go a little bit more with like 22. Yeah. They're not, super thick Sarah J. Maas books. They're usually about 250 to 300 pages. So
right. That's a decent length, and that
there, yeah.
You don't write that overnight, that's for sure.
A couple novellas. One of those series, the Sky Pirate trilogy, is more novellas. They're about 40,000 words each. So
yeah,
those
just
are
supporting on the book. Yeah. But still, it takes a lot of time just to do 40,000 words, because you don't just write 40,000 words and you're done.
It would be nice if we did.
Because you're editing yourself, you're changing things, you're revising things, and then all of a sudden Christy will slam you and say, "Hey, you got to change this," and everything else. So away you go again. So
gotta go do the whole thing over. No, she's never done that.
No, that's awesome that you get so much done. That's amazing. Yeah. So you should write a book on how to write so prolifically.
Sorry, Richie. I was just going to say, I think the one of the things that this points out, and I think a lot of people don't kind of realize this when they look at authors, and that is that every kind of like author that you kind of like ever see a book from, it's not just that author on their own. It's a team effort for sure, and the people behind the scenes may not get kind of like so much of the credit. They may not be as visible. But absolutely, we all rely on all of these people to help us to produce these things and to make them as good as we possibly can. And that's something that's worth remembering. It's like none of us can like do it all on our own, because it's too much for one person.
And the amount of things that are just growing too. I've seen formatting. I have a Mac, so I use Vellum, and it kind of does it automatically, and I don't have to worry about it. But I've seen some formatting sort of taking off into its own little creative world, where one of my friends just published a book, and her interior pages of her paperback are pictures on the front of each chapter. It's a wolf series, so she's got a wolf like in the woods on one page, and just little kind of designs throughout the book. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's a whole nother layer of things that look absolutely incredible and breathtaking. But it's like, oh man, that's another thing that I kind of think about working. But there are so many hands that go into it. And when I first started writing, I had no idea. I sat down thinking, oh, like, I wonder what writing a book would be like. And then you kind of get into the world and the community, and it's just incredible how many different people touch your book and are a part of that. Like you were saying, David, it's amazing. And it's a big learning curve, I feel like. And just really amazes me. Anytime a book comes out, I'm always just amazed at how many people it takes to do it.
It's a huge learning curve. And I think that the greatest thing about the indie community is the help that you get from all the different people in the indie community, whether they be other authors, editors that'll chime in and help you out, even, just pro bono, just helping you with little tidbits of information. If you have a simple question, cover designers, everything. It's just such a helpful society. It's it's certainly not a competition at all. It's a collaboration, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, some of my very best friends are authors. I just got to do a writing weekend recently with two of the authors that I've been closest to over the years, and I'd met one in person, but not the other. And I've known her since I started writing. And so it was so fun to just kind of go out together and plot and write and just kind of be together. And it was really, really just amazing, the types of people that you meet and the friends you make, because there's something about someone getting that creative side of you that's so special. I feel like when you meet. Oh, hi, Jennifer.
I assume you know Jennifer?
Yes, I adore her. She's an author too.
No, Jennifer's on our show a little while ago. Yeah, no, Jennifer.
I'm gonna have to go look at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's amazing, the people that you meet and how people would drop, what they're doing to pick up and help you, and which is lucky, because otherwise I would be nowhere if I didn't have any help from people, because it's very hard to figure out on your own otherwise.
Mm-hmm. And Dave's probably cursing that whole aspect, because that's how he met me. He's like, geez.
And now you're stuck.
Yes, now he's stuck with me. That's right. Yeah.
Yes. Not in the least. It was just so nice to be able to help somebody. I mean, it was just an odd thing. It's like I kind of started writing a lot before Richard, and so as he was going through things, I'd kind of like been through them maybe about 6 months before, and so they were still all kind of fresh in my head, and I just happened to spot him post something about how he was having a bit of a problem with Amazon, and I just kind of replied and told him, and then I said, if you like, I'll give you a call and I'll walk you through it, sort of thing, and we started this friendship that way.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and the neat thing about that is Dave and I are going to be doing Comic-Con this Saturday together in Southern Ontario, so that's going to be kind of cool. Yeah, our first one since March 2020. My first one since March 2020. Anyway, I sell books at a market recently, but this will be my first real con, so I'm excited to get out there again.
That's so exciting.
And Wanda Janet was saying, I would never go out and buy a book in your genre. Oh, we'll keep reading here. But listening to you, I am intrigued and I'm in awe of your accomplishments. I think I will have to get one of your books and dive in.
Wanda, that's like the second sweet thing you've said to me. So
we're gonna have to start paying Wanda, I think.
Yeah.
No, Wanda's a great supporter of our show for sure, and we've had Wanda on here as well. So a lot of our viewers are people we've had on before, and they like to come back. And there's so many neat things that we learn. I'd never heard of Book Rebel. It's just these little tidbits of things that you pick up that you hear from one author, and I'll look into it. And it might not be the silver bullet for me, but I'll look into it and see if it might help me.
Yeah.
Sell a couple more books, which at the end of the day is what we're all about. So
always a good thing.
So just going back to the thing that Richard mentioned there about live events, obviously we're seeing some of these kind of like start to resurface again after all the COVID years. So Anna, have you got anything planned for this year, or are you still kind of laying low, or how are things in the Anna world?
Yeah, there's a first time event up in New Jersey, Toms River, New Jersey this year I'm going to go to. It's August 6th and it's called Book Binge. So it'll be like an author event, and then there'll be like a signing day and an event that evening. So there was one that I was excited was going to come back in the DC area, but it ended up being right on the cusp of when COVID cases were kind of spiking again. So that one got postponed, but the one in August is still on. So I'm really excited. Like you said, it's been a long time. I actually haven't been to a live event since 2014. So I'm really excited to get my feet wet back out there and be kind of on the road. That's always so much fun.
They certainly are fun. Exactly. I think the most gratifying thing is when you do the same con again and you get return customers and they're looking for you. I remember the first con or two I did with Dave. I was very new. I had a couple of novellas that was it, and Dave had a couple of books out already, and remember we were up in a city where Dave actually lives, and someone came back. They wanted to buy his second book. Wow, that's really cool that someone read his book, bought it, read it, and loved it so much that he couldn't wait to get the next one. And I've had it happen since, and it's really gratifying when someone comes into your booth and says, "Oh, I loved your stuff."
Yeah. That's awesome. I haven't done any like a Comic-Con yet. I've really wanted to, not as an author, I've wanted to go as a reader.
Right, yeah.
And so I might have to start doing those.
Oh, they're a lot of fun. And, I even dress up now. I've got a knight's costume I bought.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it works out quite well. And then, a lot of times these people come by and they see this old guy sitting in the booth with selling books. You go, yeah, wow. But when I wear the knight's costume, they go, got to check that out. So then they come over and then we start talking.
Any marketing advice here?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, there's my marketing. That's my marketing tidbits for tonight.
There you go. Free tidbit.
So do you have anything else you want to ask Anna, Dave, before I wrap us up here?
No, I'm good.
Is there something you want to tell us, Anna, before we...
No, thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. I haven't gotten to do a podcast in a while, so I really appreciate it.
No, we're happy to have you on. If you ever want to come back on, just let us know. So before we leave you, what's next? Is it the sports romance book that's coming out in the summer? Like, obviously you have one come out in 2 days, but what's next after that?
Yep. So once the sports romance comes out, the third Curse of the Fae book is coming out, and those are releasing pretty consistently every 2 to 3 months. So that's the big one on the schedule as far as the paranormal stuff goes. And then next year I have a co-write in addition to those Curse of the Fae series with Harper A. Brooks, who's absolutely incredible. I'm really excited to write with her, but we're going to do a vampire series together. That's going to be 3 books. So lots of fun stuff coming up.
That's awesome. And Jennifer's telling Wanda that she will love her Magic Bound Saga series. So now you're going to have to pay Jennifer. So we'll pay Wanda, you pay Jennifer, and we'll all be
okay. Perfect.
And where can people find your books? So if Wanda's looking for the books, where can she find them?
Yep, all of them are on Amazon, and most of them are in Kindle Unlimited. So the Magic Bound Saga is my time travel, vampire, paranormal romance series, and that's all on Amazon.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you again for coming on our show. Talking to you, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Oh, we got another comment here before we go. So Ray is dreamy, and he is my secret book. Wow.
Our secrets are coming out now.
Now, is there a cover of him with just no shirt on?
No, he's fully clothed in the covers. So
yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
To use your imagination.
All right. So next week's show is going to be the return of our live read segment. So generally the first Tuesday of every month, we do a live read with the authors in certain genres where we read from their stories with them, and we have a lot of fun. And we have 3 guest authors joining us again. And this month's genre is science fiction. So be sure to tune in as we read from the works of Pearl Buchanan, Aaron Frail, and Kate Sheeran Swed. I hope I said that right. And there may be a little tomfoolery involved, especially with David taking part. So, as well as some special effects. That was a lot of fun when Dave started putting in these special effects. We're reading away, and a dog. Someone mentioned something about a dog, and all of a sudden you hear a dog, and you're looking around. Where the heck is a dog? So it's a lot of fun. And if you'd like to take part in one of these live reads with us, let me know, and we'll get you in when we do your genre.
Yeah.
And sorry, Dave, I neglected to ask what's new with the David Kelly universe.
Not really very much new this week. I've just been basically laying out the next book for print, and that's kind of almost complete, but that's pretty much all I've been doing this week. So nothing really new. The only new thing is the CK Expo this weekend, where I'll be there with my books and with you.
Yeah, no, I'm still banging away at Windwalker. It's slow and painful right now. And I was going to talk to Anna about that when you're writing a series. Do you find when you're kind of mid-series, the books seem to drag a little bit just because you want to get to the ending, but you don't want to wreck the story and just all of a sudden shortcome it?
Yes, middle of series, and even the middle of some books, I'm like,
yes, I'm at that point right now with the High Cliff Guardians. It's a 4-book series. I normally write trilogies, and so my books are like 150,000 words, so they're long, and I'm about 3/4 the way through Windwalker, and I still have another book to go. And there's another series I want to get at, but I'm not as prolific as you are, so I don't get them out as quickly. And yeah, so I'm just chomping at the bit. I want to get the story done, but I don't want to like chintz on it and make it. I don't want to rush it. So
Yeah.
But anyway, so we look forward to next week, and thanks again, Anna. Sorry if I've said Anna in there. Thanks again, Anna. And you said that's from Finland?
Yeah, yep, Finnish name.
Right. So for Christy, Dave, and myself, we hope everyone has a safe and healthy week ahead. Until we meet again, take good care, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.